Hey, leaders and managers, if you want a strong start to 2026, I urge you to make well-being a priority, and I'd love to help. So if you're ready to build a healthy, engaged, productive team that isn't burning out by April, I want you to join my Substack as a paid subscriber. Here's why, and I think you'll love this. For $8 a month, that's $8 US, you'll get weekly strategies, action steps, and playbooks to reduce your team's stress, prevent burnout, and strengthen mental health across your team and entire organization. These are the same tools I teach in workshops and executive coaching sessions. They're practical, evidence-based, and ready to use right away. And here's what makes this different. You get direct chat and email access to me for leadership questions on the go, troubleshooting, and ongoing support. You'll also get access to live Q&A town halls, plus bonus videos, worksheets, and tools straight from my book, Humane Leadership. So if you want steady, real-world guidance to build and maintain a healthier, more resilient team all year, free of burnout, subscribe today. It's $8 a month or $80 a year for the discounted rate. And many leaders and managers even expense it through their organizations. So level up your leadership. The link to join and subscribe is in the description right below. Welcome to the Love in Action Podcast. I'm your host, executive coach, speaker, and author, Marcel Schwantes. I believe that when we show up with our full humanity to work and lead from a place of love, joy, purpose, care, and inclusion, it's going to make a radical difference in your leadership, your business, and your bottom line. This is a show about actionable, practical love, the verb, as a leadership and business strategy. Let's get rolling. Hey, welcome back, folks. Glad you are here. So I have news. This is episode 299. And before we hit the milestone of episode 300, that's a big deal. We're going to take a few weeks off. I'm going to be on vacation, enjoying the North Carolina coast. And so next time you see us, we will have gone through a rebrand. That means a new title, a new logo, and new conversations that are a bit broader than the love and action themes that we've had over the years. We think that's going to help us grow further and get us to that goal of 1 million downloads. But hey, don't worry. If for you diehards out there who have followed our journey since 2019, we're still going to feature conversations with thought leaders and global experts to talk about human-centered and humane leadership topics, okay? That's still our bread and butter. We're never going to walk away from that. It's my whole body of work, research, and thought leadership. But it's going to be broader. So we're going to include lots of topics around the world of leadership and culture and employee engagement, all right? Okay, so here's what's on my mind today. I love data, right? A lot of my coaching work and the stuff I write about on Inc., my book, it's informed by research. But there's one stat, actually a couple of stats, that stopped me on my tracks a few weeks ago, okay? I'm just looking at these articles and I hop on this New York Times magazine or a New York Times article that points me to Harper's magazine. And Harper's magazine had some statistics that to me were quite shocking. So I'm going to cover them now. According to Harper's, only 35% of Americans say that as children, they knew a compassionate, non-judgmental adult. 35%. Think about that. I wonder what the stats are for outside the US, for European countries or South American countries. But to me, 35% growing up as kids, knowing a compassionate, non-judgmental adult, I mean, that to me is pretty shocking. But here's the thing, that when people were polled in this Harper's article about who that person was, half of them said that it was their mother, and only 5% of them said it was their father. Now, before, anyone turns this into a debate about blaming dads, I think that misses the bigger story. These numbers reflect something much deeper about how emotional roles have traditionally been assigned to in families and how entire generations are raised, including my own generation. I'm a Gen Xer. A lot of dads were taught that their primary responsibility was to, provide, protect, discipline the kids, stay emotionally controlled, So the things that we talk about that show up in the leadership literature these days, like vulnerability and authenticity, those things weren't modeled. Emotional presence wasn't rewarded, right? Tenderness wasn't, it was seen as a weakness. And I know these things because that's how my father, who is still going strong at 89, that's how he was raised by his dad. And honestly, a lot of men were never shown how to be emotionally safe people because nobody was emotionally safe for them either. But here's why these stats matter so much for leadership. Because every day in organizations, we expect leaders, to create environments where people feel, air quotes, psychologically safe. Such a buzzword these days, right? But here's what it means. It's expected that employees speak up with ideas. It's admitting mistakes. It's asking for help, challenging assumptions, collaborating in an honest way. Like if you disagree with a decision and how a task is being handled, you speak up, right? So there's better collaboration. So you're bringing your full humanity to work in psychologically safe environments. And yet many leaders were never raised in environments where psychological and emotional safety was consistently practiced. So think about that for a moment, okay? We're asking today's leaders to create experiences they may have rarely experienced themselves growing up. Now, that doesn't make them bad people, right? It just means that leadership is now harder than most people realize. A lot of leaders are navigating with what I call an incomplete emotional map, right? You can see the effects everywhere. When you have an incomplete emotional map that guides your leadership, you're going to find managers who, become defensive the moment someone disagrees with them. You're going to find leaders who avoid those hard conversations because, discomfort feels threatening to them. You're going to find executives who confuse control with strength. So they hang on to control and they stifle people's innate ability to do good work, right? And you'll find workplaces where employees, they stay silent. They don't raise their hand because honesty feels really risky. Most of this isn't happening, again, because they're not happening because leaders are malicious or, or they're evil or any of that stuff. It's happening because a lot of people learned early in life that emotional exposure came with consequences. So they adapted, right? They armored up and they learned to perform through strength, a lot of external strength, not inner strength. They learned to suppress their emotions. They learned to stay guarded, right? And then they entered leadership and they entered the world of leadership carrying these same patterns that they saw being modeled for them. And, and I'll go as far as saying that a lot of individual contributors now these days getting promoted to management roles, they have never unlearned these habits that they picked up from previous role models that exhibited the wrong leadership traits. So, if you track the research from Amy Edmondson at Harvard Business School, and if you go back to Google's Project Aristotle, we know that psychological safety is one of the strongest predictors of healthy, high-performing teams. The ability, for people to feel seen, heard, respected, and emotionally secure enough to contribute in their most authentic fashion and at a really high level. But here's the important part of this discussion, okay? Yes, we need more caring, more humane leaders at the top. And, if you read my book, Humane Leadership, we're not talking about a personality trait that maybe people are born with. No, to care for people is a daily human practice, okay? It's built in moments, in small moments, compounded over time, right? So that means, daily choices, like pausing before reacting, like listening without immediately going into Mr. Fix-It mode or Fix-It mode, like staying calm when someone brings you bad news, like asking questions with curiosity instead of, judgment and preconceived ideas in your head, right? That's listening authentically, asking questions and being fully present, especially during those difficult conversations When you hear bad news, instead of emotionally checking out, stay fully present. Okay. So these are the small moments that will compound over time. And it's the kind of caring that creates impact, right? Through these daily human moments and habits. So those moments that I just mentioned, they sound small, don't they? It's not strategic. It's not, for some of you that sit in the C-suite, right? You want the big strategy, the BHAG, right? What are we going to carry out? And sometimes this is your strategy because these moments over time, even though they sound small, like, yeah, these little daily micro habits, that's what's going to change people, sometimes permanently. So I think back to leaders I've interviewed over the years, and one pattern keeps emerging. People rarely remember the smartest leader in the room, the most confident leader in the room, or the most charismatic leader in the room. They remember the leader who made them feel safe enough to become better, to grow, to develop, to take risks. And that's what stays with people. And maybe that's the real challenge in front of today's leaders, okay? Not just driving performance and not just hitting metrics. Of course, those are all good things. But it's becoming the compassionate, non-judgmental adult that many of us never had growing up as kids. And even if you didn't experience that kind of leadership yourself growing up like me, you can still learn it. You can still practice it. You can become it. One interaction at a time, one meeting at a time, one conversation at a time. That's how we're going to break the cycle. So as I close out this episode, that 35% stat to me needs to change. We can do so much better. So maybe the greatest opportunity we have today is not just building better businesses or becoming more profitable, but it's becoming the other 65% of leaders we never saw growing up. And it starts with you. Thanks for listening. Follow me on Substack if you haven't already, and subscribe there because that's where I write my long form articles. That's where we're building a human-centered leadership tribe. And I offer tools and strategies and all kinds of goodies there for my subscribers. So I hope you'll join me there. The link is in the description right below. We're going to see you in a few weeks with this whole new rebrand and new conversations. So stay tuned until then.
Thank you for listening to the Love in Action podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it, subscribe, and leave us a review. Until next time, don't forget, the future of leadership is love in action. Believe it, practice it, and watch your leadership and business flourish.